In 1924, automobiles killed 23,600 Americans and injured 700,000 more. That's one death for every 6,800 people in the country. Today, we're examining the most dangerous cars ever sold in every decade, backed by real statistics, documented deaths, and official government investigations. These aren't urban legends, they're engineering failures that cost real lives. I'm talking about vehicles with documented safety defects that led to recalls, lawsuits, and regulatory changes. From cars with fatality rates 10 times higher than modern vehicles to designs that federal agencies deemed unreasonably dangerous, we're covering 10 decades of automotive safety failures supported by hard data from NHTSA, insurance companies, and court records. Starting with the 1920s, when the annual death rate from motor vehicles was 18 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, compared to 1.1 today. The Ford Model T dominated this era, representing the majority of cars on American roads. The Model T had several documented safety issues. The hand crank starter caused numerous arm fractures when the engine backfired, spinning the crank violently backward. Medical journals from the period documented this as a common injury pattern among automobile owners. The car lacked safety glass, which wasn't commercially available until 1928. In accidents, occupants were frequently injured by glass fragments from the windshield and side windows. The solid steel steering column provided no impact absorption, and the brake system was entirely mechanical with no power assistance. The fuel system consisted of a gravity-fed tank located directly under the driver's seat with minimal protection. According to insurance records from the 1920s, fire was a significant cause of death in automobile accidents, partly due to exposed fuel systems and electrical components. Contemporary traffic studies show that in 1925, there were 21,900 motor vehicle deaths in a population of 115 million Americans. The Model T's production volume meant it was involved in a significant percentage of these fatalities, though exact attribution is impossible due to limited record keeping of the era. The 1930s brought increased speeds and more powerful engines, but safety technology remained largely unchanged. The Auburn Speedster represented the performance car segment of the 1930s, featuring a supercharged straight-8 engine producing 150 horsepower, exceptional for the era when most cars generated 40 to 60 horsepower. The high power-to-weight ratio created handling challenges that contemporary drivers weren't equipped to manage. Road conditions in the 1930s consisted primarily of two-lane highways with no median barriers, poor lighting, and surfaces that became treacherous in wet weather. Insurance data from the period shows that high-performance vehicles had disproportionately higher claim rates. The Auburn's mechanical brake system required significant physical strength to operate effectively and provided limited stopping power compared to modern standards. Each Auburn Speedster came with a certificate stating it had been tested at over 100 miles per hour. Given that speed limits on most highways were 45 to 55 miles per hour and tire technology was primitive by modern standards, this created a significant safety mismatch between vehicle capability and infrastructure. Contemporary automotive publications noted handling difficulties at high speeds, particularly the tendency for the rear end to lose traction during cornering. The lack of modern safety equipment, no safety glass, seat belts, or energy-absorbing steering columns meant that accidents at the Auburn's capable speeds were often fatal. World War II brought new manufacturing techniques to automobiles, but not necessarily safer ones. The immediate post-war DeSoto Suburban represented early attempts at unibody construction, but manufacturers were still learning how to properly engineer integrated body frame designs. Contemporary crash testing was virtually non-existent, so structural integrity was largely theoretical. The DeSoto featured thin-gauge steel construction that was lighter and more economical to produce, but provided less protection in collisions compared to traditional body-on-frame designs. A significant safety concern was the heating system design. Many 1940s cars, including the DeSoto, used heat exchangers that drew warm air from around the exhaust manifold. Inadequate sealing could allow carbon monoxide to enter the passenger compartment, a problem documented in period medical literature as a cause of highway fatalities. The suspension system used soft springs and minimal damping, which created handling instability at highway speeds. Contemporary automotive magazines noted that many post-war cars had a tendency to float or bounce excessively, making precise control difficult. Insurance Institute records from the late 1940s show that collision fatality rates remained high despite lower traffic volumes compared to pre-war levels, suggesting that vehicle design was not keeping pace with improving road infrastructure. The 1950s brought style and power, but also some of the most dangerous interior designs ever conceived. The 1957 Plymouth Fury exemplified 1950s automotive design philosophy: maximum style with minimal consideration for occupant protection. The Fury featured a 318 cubic inch V8 engine producing 290 horsepower in a 3,650-pound vehicle. The interior design was particularly hazardous. The dashboard featured solid steel construction with chrome-plated knobs, switches, and decorative elements positioned at head and chest level. In frontal collisions, these became impact points that caused severe injuries. The steering wheel was solid metal with no energy absorption capability. Contemporary insurance data shows that head and facial injuries were common in 1950s vehicle accidents, directly attributed to interior design features that would be considered weapons by modern standards. The lack of energy-absorbing materials meant that even moderate-speed crashes could cause fatal injuries. Electrical system fires were documented problems in many 1950s vehicles, including the Fury. Cloth-wrapped wiring, inadequate fusing, and primitive electrical components created fire hazards. Contemporary fire department records show automobile fires as a significant category of emergency calls. The fuel system placement behind the rear axle with minimal protection was typical for the era. While specific fire statistics for the Fury aren't available, rear impact fires were a documented cause of automotive fatalities throughout the 1950s. The muscle car era of the 1960s created vehicles with unprecedented power-to-weight ratios. The Shelby Cobra 427 combined a 425 horsepower Ford big block engine with a lightweight chassis weighing approximately 2,400 pounds, creating a power-to-weight ratio of 5.6 pounds per horsepower, exceptional even by modern standards. Contemporary road tests documented the extreme nature of the vehicle's performance. Car and Driver magazine noted that the Cobra required professional level driving skills and was unforgiving of mistake. The lack of power steering, power brakes, or any electronic aids meant that vehicle control depended entirely on driver skill. Insurance companies in the 1960s classified the Cobra as a high-risk vehicle, with some insurers refusing coverage entirely. Those that did provide insurance charged premiums that were multiples of normal rates, reflecting actuarial data showing high claim frequencies. The fiberglass body provided minimal crash protection. Unlike steel, fiberglass shatters rather than deforms, offering no energy absorption in impacts. The tubular space frame, while lightweight, provided minimal protection in side impacts or rollovers. Track safety records from the period show that Cobras were involved in numerous racing fatalities, though exact numbers vary by source. The combination of extreme performance and minimal safety equipment made these vehicles particularly dangerous for inexperienced drivers. But extreme performance cars affected relatively few people. The 1970s brought safety disasters to mainstream family vehicles. The Ford Pinto fuel system defect represents one of the most documented automotive safety scandals in history. On June 9, 1978, Ford Motor Company agreed to recall 1.5 million Ford Pinto and 30,000 Mercury Bobcat sedan and hatchback models for fuel tank design defects, which made the vehicles susceptible to fire in the event of a moderate speed rear-end collision. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's official investigation concluded that 27 Pinto occupants had died in these crashes, and a further 24 Pinto occupants sustained non-fatal injuries. However, estimates vary significantly. Estimates by Mother Jones attribute between 500 and 900 burn deaths to Pinto crashes, while reports range from 27 to 180 deaths as a result of rear impact-related fuel tank fires in the Pinto. The defect was specific and well documented. In rear-end collisions above 25 miles per hour, the fuel tank would rupture due to contact with the differential housing or be punctured by protruding bolts. This would spray gasoline into the passenger compartment, often igniting due to sparks or hot surfaces. Ford's internal cost-benefit analysis became public during litigation, showing the company had calculated it would cost $11 per vehicle to fix the problem, but chose not to implement the fix. This document became central evidence in multiple wrongful death lawsuits. The recall aimed to modify the vehicle's fuel systems to reduce fire risks and represented one of the largest automotive recalls in U.S. history at that time. The 1980s brought computerization to automobiles, creating entirely new categories of safety problems. The Audi 5000 sudden unintended acceleration incidents became the subject of extensive NHTSA investigation and congressional hearings. Between 1982 and 1987, NHTSA received over 1,000 reports of sudden acceleration incidents involving the 5000 series. The incidents followed a consistent pattern. Drivers would report that their vehicles would suddenly accelerate without input, often while parking or in stop-and-go traffic. NHTSA's investigation documented 271 accidents resulting in 815 injuries and 6 deaths specifically attributed to sudden acceleration in the 5000. Initially, Audi attributed the incidents to driver error, claiming people were pressing the accelerator instead of the brake. However, the consistency and frequency of reports from experienced drivers suggested a mechanical cause. NHTSA's investigation identified several contributing factors, including pedal placement and transmission design issues. The scandal devastated Audi's U.S. sales. Annual sales dropped from 74,061 units in 1985 to 12,283 in 1991, an 84% decline. This represented one of the most dramatic market share losses in automotive history due to a safety issue. Audi ultimately agreed to extend warranties, modify vehicles with brake shift interlocks, and implement other changes. The incident led to federal regulations requiring brake shift interlocks on all automatic transmission vehicles and changed how manufacturers handle safety defect investigations. The 1990s SUV boom created new safety challenges, particularly regarding rollover stability. The Suzuki Sidekick and Geo Tracker had documented rollover problems that led to extensive litigation and safety investigations. Consumer Reports conducted standard handling tests and found the vehicles had excessive rollover propensity, leading to their removal from the magazine's recommended list. NHTSA data shows these vehicles had rollover rates significantly higher than comparable passenger cars. The short wheelbase, 86, combined with a high center of gravity, created instability during emergency maneuvers or high-speed cornering. Insurance Institute for Highway Safety crash tests revealed that the roof structure provided inadequate protection in rollover scenarios. The roof would deform excessively, reducing survival space and increasing the risk of fatal head injuries. Court records from multiple lawsuits documented hundreds of rollover incidents involving sidekicks and trackers. Many involved roof crush injuries, where occupants were seriously injured or killed when the roof collapsed during rollover sequences. The vehicle's rollover tendencies were so well documented that Suzuki faced multiple class action lawsuits. Settlement amounts reached hundreds of millions of dollars, and the company eventually discontinued both models in the US market. These cases contributed to the development of federal roof crush standards and electronic stability control requirements that became mandatory on all vehicles in later years. The 2000s brought new safety technologies, but also new ways for those technologies to fail catastrophically. The Ford Explorer Firestone tire controversy represents one of the most extensively documented automotive safety scandals. NHTSA received over 6,000 complaints related to Firestone tire failures, primarily involving tread separation on Ford Explorers. The official death toll was significant. NHTSA attributed 271 deaths and over 800 injuries to tire failures, primarily involving Firestone ATX, ATX2, and Wilderness AT tires mounted on Ford Explorers. Most incidents occurred in hot weather states, particularly Texas, Florida, and California. The failure pattern was consistent. Tread separation would occur at highway speeds, causing drivers to lose control of the top-heavy SUV, often resulting in rollovers. Internal Firestone documents showed the company was aware of higher failure rates in hot climates, but continued production. Ford's recommended tire pressure of 26 psi was lower than Firestone's recommendation of 30 psi. This lower pressure improved ride quality, but caused the tires to run hotter, accelerating the degradation of the tire components that led to tread separation. The scandal resulted in the largest tire recall in US history, 6.5 million tires. Congressional hearings revealed that both companies had internal data showing problems but failed to act promptly. The incident led to the Tread Act, which established new tire testing standards and recall procedures. Even with modern safety systems, the 2010s proved that poor interface design could still be deadly. The 2014-2016 Jeep Grand Cherokee electronic shifter problem led to a major recall affecting 1.1 million vehicles. NHTSA's investigation documented over 300 reports of unintended vehicle movement, including multiple fatalities. The most publicized case involved actor Anton Yelchin, who was killed when his 2015 Grand Cherokee rolled backward and pinned him against his security gate. NHTSA's investigation found that the electronic shift lever was confusing to operate and provided inadequate feedback about the selected gear position. Unlike traditional mechanical shifters that physically move to different positions, the Grand Cherokee's shifter would return to center position regardless of the selected gear. Drivers would often exit the vehicle believing it was in park when it was actually in reverse or neutral. NHTSA's defect investigation, EA 15-002, documented the specific problems. The shifter design violated decades of established human factors engineering principles. There was no tactile feedback, confusing visual indicators, and the shift pattern was non-intuitive. The recall involved updating software to provide additional warnings and clearer gear position indicators. However, the fundamental shifter design remained unchanged, leading to continued incidents even after the recall. This case became a textbook example of how modern electronic systems can create new safety hazards when they ignore established human interface design principles. These 10 vehicles represent documented failures in automotive safety, each backed by government investigations, insurance data, and court records. The annual death rate has declined from 18 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled in 1925 to 1.7 per 100 million VMT in 1997, a massive improvement driven largely by lessons learned from failures like these. The pattern is clear. Most of these safety defects were preventable. Engineers often knew about the problems, but economic or competitive pressures led to decisions that prioritized other factors over safety. It typically took regulatory action, litigation, or public pressure to force corrections. Modern vehicles benefit from decades of accumulated safety knowledge, federal safety standards, crash testing, and advanced materials. Today's cars have safety features that would have seemed like science fiction to drivers of previous generations. What surprised you most about these documented safety failures? Let me know in the comments which decade you think had the most dangerous vehicles overall. If you want to see more deep dives into automotive history backed by real data and government investigations, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Our next video will examine how specific federal safety regulations came about, often in direct response to the failures we discussed today. Thanks for watching, and remember, the safest car is always the one you're wearing your seatbelt in.